All right, I'm gonna tell you the story on how I became a software engineer without a college degree. It starts off when I was in high school. I took a class where it was basic HTML and CSS. Didn't really use too much of that knowledge until I got to college. And when it came down to using that knowledge, I expanded and learned a little bit more about JavaScript at that time as well too. The projects I started to get when I was in college were just some side ones that I was, I don't know, retrieving in some different ways. A couple from my job, some just word of mouth, but either way, we were getting projects. And the main platform I was using was WordPress, and I was learning just how to build sites on WordPress. So those three languages I mentioned were pretty much the basics you need to start building a WordPress site. And so during college, I didn't think too much of it. I went to school for something completely different, but I always kept this web design, front end developer skill in my palette. And as time went on, after I got done with the time I spent in college, I started doing networking events. And part of it at that time was for the job I was doing, but then when I left that job, and this is when I was a mortgage loan officer. I left that job and I started to do more networking events of like me solo dolo. And so this is when I was like doing freelancing like on my own. So I was doing freelancing. It was decent. It lasted for what, I think 8 or 9 months, where I was able to just find projects based off word of mouth or going to these networking events and just handing business cards and just following up with people. So that was fun while that lasted. I ended up having a little bit of a financial thing come up, so I ended up having to get a job in the real world again. And this was back into the banking industry. So I was a banker and then moved around with that. I was getting kind of less interested in banking, and I wanted to make the switch to something different. And so I knew at that time the software engineering or just building websites, that skill had gotten a lot better based off all the projects I've had. And when I started to apply for jobs, I really wasn't getting anything. And then after a while of not getting anything, okay, I sat down and I said, what do I need to do? So I created a plan where I knew I needed to like create certain projects and learn certain things in like a certain amount of time. I had 90 days, so I actually did this in 90 days. I bought like 5 or 6 Udemy courses, and yeah, I just went crazy. It was like a 3 month lock-in, just basically coding every single day. I remember one of the months I ended up just taking the full month off from work. Actually, it was like 6 weeks. So it was like half of that time I was just off from work, with PTO that I accumulated and things like that. And finished out the courses. I built these new cool projects and a couple new languages that I never knew before, or at least didn't know as much. When I was building WordPress sites before, I was either building them with plugins, or not a plugin. I was using Divi, which is kind of like a plugin, kind of not. It's a builder. That's how I was building up most of my websites. But when I started doing this like lock-in coding program thing that I was kind of doing for myself, I was using React. I was also using C Sharp, and then I also was starting to learn more about backends as well too, and middle software that's needed to communicate between the two, and OAuth and things like that, and how to hash and blah blah blah. I can share that stuff in another video. But once I had these projects done, one was almost close to like a social media site where you can actually come to it, you can browse around, you can actually sign up, log in, see your posts, create new ones. Like, the projects I did were worthwhile to some of the people I started applying to. I did the methods that I used before, and this time I had better projects, and I reamped my resume to look a lot better for recruiters in the tech companies. And after a while, I ended up getting a recruiter from a company here in Minnesota based, and they got me with a company that's based off in another state in the Midwest. I kind of forgot. But it was a great opportunity. Got to work from home. This is my first time being a full-time employee. This was at the beginning of 2022, actually. So this was just this past year. Got my first job as a full-time, what was I? I was a full stack developer. I almost said front end, but I was a full stack developer. At least that's what I got hired for, just because I could show I could build a whole social media. I was also learning about SQL and NoSQL, and learning more about NoSQL for databases, because in my opinion those are just a little bit better, but it just depends on what you're building. But yeah, I took on some really big projects with this company. It was a 6-month contract, and I was happy. This is great. But the cool thing was, now I'm gonna kind of switch around the timing in here this as I explain this. But as I was ending my 6-month contract, there was no like indication that we were going to like go through another contract, because we were getting ready to launch the project and there was no need to extend it or anything like that. So one of the previous companies that I was applying for before, I was actually doing their interview process before I got the job that I did the contract for, and they basically got me to the last round where they said they wanted to, hire me, but they were just looking to make sure that it was in a certain amount of timeline, or it was in a certain timeline to be able to be put it onto a project. And I told them, basically, I have other people that, are giving me offers as well. So if you're going to say that you're going to give me an offer, I need it in a certain time. Didn't get it in that time frame. I ended up just approving or going with the first one, which was a 6-month contract. I kept in contact with the people from the first job, which is now my permanent job. So when I was getting to the end of the contract, I basically let them know, like, hey, the contract's ending, and I was just wondering if the opportunity is still available. They said yeah, since I basically did all the interviewing before. It was just hey, can you start on this date? And I swear my contract ended right at the end, or right at the beginning of August, and within a week I was at this new company. So it's been a crazy journey. My first full year as a software engineer, it's been pretty fun, not gonna lie. It's been some ups and downs. Of course, it just depends on the projects that you get, but when you have a team and you can work through it based off the method that you use. I've been using a lot of Scrum. It's just a different method of doing meetings and actually collaborating with other engineers or other developers or other back-end people or project managers or product solution people, or it's just a way of doing development for a project. But other than that, it's been fun. I hope this story was a good one for you, but if you take the time to learn the skills, I know I started off in high school, but honestly, I probably could have skipped all that time if I would have just focused a lot more earlier and actually did it. But I enjoyed my timing in the banking industry, so I can't really complain. But I'm glad I did the switch over when I did. This is going to be an industry that's going to be around for a very long time, so I'm very excited to be in it. My first year done. We're in 2023 now, so that's year one in the books and more years to come. If you're also looking to get a job as a software engineer, do not let some of these job postings with like 5 or 6 years of experience for entry level discourage you. You just have to talk the shit basically, and you have to know what you're saying. You got to explain it to a T, and just have good communication skills and let them know. Be truthful. You're a little bit newer, but you're always up to the challenge, and that you've been under pressure in previous times, and that you know how to at least communicate when that time comes. The last thing I would say is make sure your resume is very good in the sense of just organized. I'll probably make another video or so in the future about how to do resumes, but that is kind of important for the initial view from the employers. But I would say worry about having a good portfolio of projects some that you've done for other people, and then some that you built on your own. And that is going to be a good way of getting into this industry without a college degree. Experience. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Peace out. Bye.